for being. Really appreciate the participants as well as the organizers for providing this wonderful platform for exchange and sharing an experience and the knowledge. So today's topic, as I was hearing from Shri, is actually a very interesting topic, or it's a very humongous topic. I will do my level best to talk in 15 minutes and allowing some interactive questions and information or even questions. So we'll begin. Vijay, if it's good to start. All right, thanks. I hope you are able to hear me clearly and able to see my screen. So as you all know that through Agile Waters, we are also offering courses on IC Agile's flagship course called IC Agile Project Activity Management, knowledge-based certification, having lifetime validity. So what we're going to cover is also part of the learning of one of the learning objectives, part of this course. Manage the system, empower the team, align on that. So transformation itself, agile transformation in particular, is a very topic. Can take the entire course over a duration of 1 week or more. This is my introduction. So those of you who know me already, it be a repetition, but those for hearing me for the first time, all my experience as a practitioner in the corporate world. And I and Vijay happen to be colleagues, and we work together since part of the same. Also hold a couple of certifications that has provided a lot of value in terms of knowledge, body of knowledge, and the new trends that are emerging as the volume of the past 2 decades. We are hearing that talking. So let's go ahead. So this is going to be an interesting topic, and of course it is very. So we're going to ponder over some of the aspects of why it is challenge for many organizations. There have been more stories about agile transformation ending up as failure than agile transformation leading and transferring their organization. Starts with Darwin and art of creation of nature, but then not even for metamorphosis. It's a very difficult process in nature, and we don't know. I'm not really having a process statistic that after every 8,000 larvae, how many actually end up with us. But it would be really difficult. Right? But then in the end result, you can see the wonderful art. So one of the key proponent of Agile, founder member of the Agile Manifesto, decades Jeff Sutherland, has stated, that 47% Agile transformation, was like 50%. And now that every organization is trying to, be Agile or they are doing Agile transformation, this is significant. 47% Agile transformation. And of those 47%, 67, that is almost 2/3 of these failures are terminal. It means that they end up as closed projects, failed projects, no point of return. So this is very alarming. So then, we have to really sit back and understand that why such large number of.
Sorry, Vijay, to cut you, but this is the same for SDLC. Stats are the same. Same stats.
Margaret, you're asking me or asking Vijay?
I'm telling, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just saying whoever the representative is, that this stats of 47 failures, 50% failure, same in SDLC. So it's not it's not something new. It's
okay. Thanks for sharing. So this is not something only happening.
Yeah, any this you do, if you do it shabbily, you will get this kind of data.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you.
No, that's an interesting point of observation. Okay. But when we talk about transformation, agile transformation, it means that it looks like that the people are not yet getting more of transformation. Be it principles, be it methods or technique, or they don't have the wherewithal to start the transformation. They don't have the kind of end vision or the end state in their mind, and simply went about the something came around and will transfer the strategy and start it. Not how it works. It has to have some kind of what we call method in back and kind of a strategy to back it up. And there has to be sustenance, has support throughout this. But this is going to be long haul. Many organizations have taken years to transform. So there are some unrealistic expectations around Agile, and um, not to really kind of make it in the form of hype, but we all have our experience here. Vijay and his team, we all have been, working as consultants, supporting organizations in their journey of transformation. So that transformation sometimes can get very tricky. And many times we have seen that halfway through the entire transformation cycle, some organizations tend to really give up. They kind of, they really hang their shoulders. Think it's not worth it. It was not like what we thought. So these are some of the real challenges I think of. So we'll look at some of the aspects of the research and what are some of the ways we can actually make this transformation successful. I got some templates and models in my research, not only from my own experience but also from others, other societies, by means of which you can really actually stick and make this thing stick also over a long. And then there are some more statistics. Yeah, we will slightly little bit deviate into in terms of like what are some of the causes, what are some of the that we got from surveys, like the steps from the annual state of agile survey, which is conducted here, and try to get some more and more insights into what are some of the causes, factors responsible for not making something work versus 42% respondents cited the company culture at all. And when we talk about agile values, agile principles, we have to see that there has to be nice alignment and balance between what these values and principles are versus what the company culture of some values that are at the core of a organization. Right? If these are at odds, then yeah, definitely very, very difficult and possible. And also another statistic, 30% felt that here are some samples that we need to go into like more detail, and it's very, very contextual. So some of the reasons are applicable in particular, and not all applicable but type of organization. So it all depends on the nature of an organization, the type of transformation they are starting on, what are that they are trying to achieve by this. And please keep chiming in along with your observations, your experiences. I'm going to talk about it. And so version one is a name, is a known name in the world of science. We all have used version for some point of time, and it was one of the most popular agile PLM tool for Jira and such PLM around. So they do this surveys quite frequent. They have a very good client clientele. So why they have attributed some of these factors, failures that are agile transformation taken. The cultural fit is one of the reasons. Then resistance to change, right? And in any organization, when try to bring out certain change, always find some skeptic, some change. Whereas on the other hand, they will become to go kind of earlier on, and they will be advocates for the change. But then there's still a very stiff resistance to change. Lack of management support, lack of agile skills, and inconsistency. The way you earlier hinted at, Mark, right? And there's not seems to be kind of a well thought out approach or a process in place. Companies might have simply gone about it, started transformation without doing proper homegrown comment and search. So what kind of changes, what stages, what kind of changes going along. And then there are certain other factors, several reasons, especially for large scale events. And many a times we have seen that some of these transformations have worked very well, are very successful at a small level, like a level, and then companies are really very encouraged. They're motivated. Yeah, this is really work. Then when they simply want to understand how this can scale up, right? But then some of the key reasons is sometimes we've seen lack of leadership support. Initially there would be initial enthusiasm, but then the leadership kind of again back to the average hours, or we do not see kind of great enthusiasm from them or adequate support that take decisions and for some of the changes, or even in communicating progress or change larger organization. Lack of commitment at every level of the organization not be really bought in. They might be forced. They might think that yeah, this is something the manager wants us to do, but they may not be really convinced or they not supporting um, transformation. So they may not show that kind of. And again, that incorrect knowledge about the application of software, it's like kind of not having the right knowledge about what tool or a technique, and then you apply it in a wrong way, and then it just cause more frustration in the workforce. And yeah, the lack of understanding and rushing. I see that rushing the transformation. People get so impatient that some of the initial success, they get more impatient, saying that yeah, I mean, let's get this done fast, and they put pressure on the consultants, on the coaches. Okay, can we do this 1 year? Now, question on the can on the spot. So, if you have any rejoinders, any points of observation from your side, you can halt me in my track and stop and take it conversation on this point. So then there are big questions, and I heard Shri, used to be when we were talking when we were the proposal joined early, we were having questions in our mind. What are the stakes here? I mean, why are we doing this transformation? And the big question is how long it take us, how do we do it? Was the old way better and uncharted territory? Don't know whether this will work for us. And all those questions will start pop up in there. How so it looks like that, there are certain gaps here. You've not had a communication plan, not had a kind of roadmap in place. Some of these very basic essential things that are required. Right? And how do we communicate this plan? How do we get the buy-in from all them? How do we bring them into the game? Ultimately, everybody has to be part of this game. So how do we bring them into the game? How do we motivate them, engage them? And then how do we have a system in place where we do the 30-day monthly check-ins, how we are progressing, have some metrics in place. How do we measure that how the transformation is working out? What kind of a roadmap, where stage we are in right now, how far we are. There are a lot of questions and more complex large organization, these questions will be kind of multiplying across partners. So then what do we do? Why is there a way to do it? So the good news is yes, there is a definite way to do it and how we do it. Basic picture is the wonderful outcome. Part of the nature brain that you see on the wings of the butterfly is how it transforms from an insect or caterpillar. Very beautiful part of nature form. So yes, there's indeed a way to do it. If you sit together, if you sit down and take a pause and think, how we're gonna. It's like my best analogy to being an agile transformation is like planning an Everest expedition. So how do you climb? How do you reach the summit of mountain? You simply cannot. Even if you're a good climber, if you're a good mountaineer, it doesn't mean that you will straight away, 10 days or 15 days. Or if you have a camp, group of people, having a goal or objective of you reaching the top Mount Everest, it's 29,000 feet. It takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of vision and it may require training, it may require different kind of sources, it may require the most important thing is to require a plan or a strategy. It is some kind of a strategy. And you cannot simply reach from your whatever at ground level to all the way to the top of the mountain without having intermediate stops. Like they call it like base camp. There's a base camp one at 12,000 feet. The next at 20,000 feet. There's a final base camp. Base camp. And after that, you'll directly make a launch to the summit. And they will have to ensure that the everybody is in a good health condition. You have all the necessary supplies. And if the weather turns bad, what's the plan for plan? And if they do not, reach base camp two, then what step they take? So they have to figure out, and yet then they have to be ready to face the change. It can change any moment, any time. Weather condition, any other external factors may change, or someone may fall ill along the way, or there's an avalanche, which can completely, impact their whole expedition. So they need to be prepared. So there's definitely a way to it. But then the good question is, how do we get our heads around making strategy, and then what would be our starting point? So at a very fundamental level, especially when you talk about agile transformation, no matter what the scale is, from a small setup to a large complex organization, it is three primary characters. First is about the team. You need to have forming teams, and all of these things very trivial, very simple. But let me tell you, from my experience, and also all of you are here, and all of you have your own share of experience working in corporate industry. Forming teams, getting the right people on the board and right skills, not an task, right? It's again a process of evolution. Also evolve, people also get mature in terms of their capability. So forming teams and then scaling up teams, depending on the complexity of the product or the if it's a large scale enterprise product. Could be set of teams, network of teams, and how these set of teams work together in a very nice orchestrated manner. Building backlogs, right? It's a very simple thing. I often have seen like teams starting their transformation, or even starting the product development without having a proper backlog. So again, this seems very trivial, but many people still do not have the right understanding of what really is a backlog and what goes inside a backlog. How do we order, prioritize the backlog items, backlog in terms of risk, in terms of value, and all that stuff, right? And the third thing, important thing is, when you've got these teams, you've got these backlogs, well-defined requirements in form of stories and prioritize and neatly ordered in sequence and all that stuff. You need to get into a system of, regularly producing working business software, like delivering value to the customer at regular intervals. And the same thing, may not be a case of a replication. So we assume that if it works on one team, it can work with the entire enterprise. That is the biggest policy. My experience, I've seen that an initial experiment pilot successful, people get so enthusiastic, they think that just simply apply this template pattern rest of the organization, and that doesn't work. But at scale, it's about network of loosely coupled teams. Loosely coupled team means that they are in a position to work more or less independently, but they're interdependent. So they have been able to figure out what are the dependencies between themselves, and they have carved out a system where they know how to work out through these set of dependencies. And all of them working together on a common product vision. Now, definitely when you set out in this fashion, you'll definitely have some kind of impediments or barriers that will come in your team's way to achieve some of these topics. So you need to find out a way, how do we remove these barriers, and that will help the teams in accomplishing all of these the above. That's what is principally the work of agile transformation. So if you look at any transformation, agile transformation strategy or a roadmap, it will always have the mechanisms to find out what are some of these barriers. Like for example, their teams are there, but they are not sufficiently trained, right? They do not have the right kind of process tools and methodology. They don't have a CI/CD DevOps in place. They don't have automation. So any strategy will help identify and help come up with some mechanisms to remove these barriers. That's what is essentially the whole work of agile transfer. I'll just take a short pause here. Anyone has any share any ideas or any things to share from your side? All right, let's keep going then. So we'll also have to have a
Kiran,
unanimous.
sorry, Casey here.
Hi, Casey. Tell me.
Hi, Hiran. In this art scale, it's about network of loosely coupled teaming, meaning what?
All right. Okay. See, when you talk about enterprise, right? It's definitely going to be a set of teams, right, Casey? You'll have a team working on a component A or component B, or just assume that you will have it's a large enterprise product or organization. So you have many teams. Now we have to have a network of decoupled. So what we had earlier, where we were working traditional way of development. So we were in a hierarchical setup, right? So we had teams reporting into a higher hierarchy, then that hierarchy reporting another higher hierarchy. So we dismember those teams and bring them into forward network of loosely coupled, like what we call a cross-functional self-managed team, right? So each small unit of team is independent, has all the necessary capabilities and competencies, and it is cross-functional. So they have all the skills to convert set of requirements into something what we call delivered to customer. That's what we mean by network of loosely coupled. But then they still need to work together for a common product vision. One team's outcome is not the necessarily the entire product outcomes. So our set of outcomes from all these teams integrate together makes a wonderful product. So that's how the network will be coupled. Each team in its own ways is autonomous. They are self-managed. They are self-organized, cross-functional, all those that. So, in team is finished.
So in
So,
that way, Kiran, actually you are explaining. Yeah, this is Vijay. Yeah, you are
hi
explaining
Vijay.
almost
Yeah,
like cross-functional team and
exactly.
self-managed, correct? So better we can put it's about cross-functional self-managed teams working together rather than saying loosely coupled team. That's what I think Casey was raising.
So why I chose to use this is in terms of like agility. Yeah. You have got a point there, and I understand where it is coming from. So yeah, it is about cross function. But the very important thing is to use the couple team. Couple team means you need to have teams which are autonomous and independent, right? Now that doesn't mean that they do not have dependencies among them. They are interdependent, but they are free in a way that they have necessary skills. They can take a part of the backlog and then they work on this. Okay, let's work on this feature. Right? We work on this feature and to for this. But then this feature has to be integrated to make a part of the. But I get your point. Yeah, definitely we can rephrase this to cross-functional teams or self-managing working together on a common.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
I appreciate both of you, Vijay and Casey, for bringing that nice.
Thank you. Just a small clarification. That's it.
So basically, here you are saying loosely coupled means there is no dependency on developing something, but there will be a dependency on functionality wise. For example,
Absolutely.
we will be having teams like upstream, downstream system, or yeah, like that, correct? So there will be some dependency being the
So we call it
scrum of scrum.
interdependence.
Yeah,
Yeah. Scrum of
interdependency will
scrum.
be there. Yeah, but actually, on a technical implementation wise or development wise, there is no dependency, meaning everybody is self managed
Self-managed,
and yeah,
self-organized.
cross functional team. Okay,
Wonderful.
thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. Wonderful explanation. Thank you.
So transformation is also about refactoring the organization. Once in a while, we refactor the code as the code grows, it becomes like a code blot, and then it starts having designs. What we do once in a while, we refactor the code to keep those design principles in place, couple of software so that making a change in one phase does not break down the entire system or go upset present part. So organization is also has to refactor. Uh, they have to break the barriers. They have to organize a form of network. So transformation also refers to work of refactoring organization so that it actually transitions from doing agile to being agile. So refactoring the organization is not just physical refactoring. It could be stated in terms of changing the mindset, changing the org culture, redefining some of the processes, bringing in some of the lightweight processes. So refactoring is all encompassing. It means many dimensions, many facets of making the changes, making the changes at the right time, making a change in the cadence. Like we saw, the larvae can generate in form of a pupa. Now, cannot simply jump from larvae to the butterfly. Change from larvae to butterfly is several intermediate stages of change. So it has to be done in that thoughtful manner. Now, the good thing is that agile transformation is the kind of a system approach, so it can be planned, managed. can have a system where we can plan transformation, you can manage it, manage the techniques, and you can measure. There are certain measures and techniques by means of which you can identify how's your progressing.
Kiran, sorry to interrupt. It looks like your mic has something. We need to. I think I'm not sure whether anybody else
Agree.
is facing.
No, agree. I meant to say it, but it was getting better. Then it got worse. It's very
Oh, really?
like
Yeah,
choppy,
yeah.
and you're right.
Is it better now? Is it still what kind of
Now
noise
better,
do you
Kiran. Now definitely better than last 10 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
really?
Agree.
Maybe you can
I-
keep the mic very close to you. Yeah, sorry to say that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Can you hear it
Yeah,
better now?
now it is much better because we can able to see
very much
that
clear.
you're keeping next to. Thanks, Kiran. Yeah.
All right, all right. No, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. All right. So, again, in this presentation, I'm not going to, simply, give a recipe. Okay, this is how you do the transfer. Though there are certain pointers, some of the key cornerstones I'm going to talk about in some slides. But I'm going to tell all of us are practitioners and all of us have our own experience. We have learned our lessons. We have experimented. We have run hypotheses, and we have seen that certain things work, certain things do not work. And this is something that we see common across every transformation story, right? Whether it's a transformation in any domain, whether it's finance domain or product design or any kind of a. So, what are some of those key elements that I have seen that I like to share here? Now, big bang, full scale transformation does not work. So, there have been attempts at doing a big bang. A big bang is like, for example, apply this across the enterprise, left and right, top to bottom. So that some place you have to run a hypothesis, try it out and see whether it works. Then you have to scale. You have to scale it. You have to extend the transformation to other department, other team. And that will just simply blanket scaling does not work. So let's say, for example, in R&D, you apply a certain template, certain system, it works. And now you try to apply the same template to, let's say, sales and marketing. Now the functional sales and marketing is different. Maybe the culture there is different, right? The way of working is slightly different. So a blanket application of any template will not succeed. You have to have a very thoughtful approach, even in the scaling. And big bang, full scale transformation really does. About and I think rushing the transformation process does not help either. Sometimes I've seen, leadership, especially, they become very impatient. It's understandable, they have their business goals, objectives, ROI, and all that, capital expenses, other expenses, tied into transformation. They are impatient to see some quick results. But then we have to be patient. We will tell them, this is going to be a long haul exercise. We will have some measures and we will do introspection to retrospect to the regular intervals to see whether the activities that we are performing right now, what results they are showing. Are these results going to show us better outcomes at the point of time and all this stuff. So rushing is definitely not going to help. And also we have to have very good understanding that Agile is mostly about cultural transformation. Right? It's about mindset change. So if you miss this key element, key aspect, then I think no matter how good the consultant is or how good your practices are and all that, not going to really stick unless we bring about this fundamental change in form of mindset and cultural. The way of working that has to be that has to change. Then only your any transformation strategy is successful. And for large complex organization, transformation must be carefully orchestrated. What I have seen is that we start with a pilot, and then this pilot was highly successful. We see some good results. Some of you, if you remember my previous video, where I showed some of the teams, they're really very excited, very happy, very enthusiastic about it. But then as we start spreading this to the larger organization, pilot rolls out a set of other teams. And that's where the things start to get crazy and all that stuff. And then but for large organizations, we need to have a kind of a carefully orchestrated strategy. How we sustain this change from a department to other departments. And also, when we talk about transformation, you need to have a roadmap. The roadmap has to have a vision where you clearly define what's the end state, end goal that you'd like to reach to. We want to transform this organization, yes, but then what can you clearly specify in terms of what you would like to change your organization, what your organization is today, what kind of nature of your organization. The organization is kind of a lean startup already, or you are a brick and mortar kind of office. You are having a very process-oriented work culture. You have a PMO organization, which have very habitual in long-term plans, scope, time, cost. They are very elaborately calculated. Detailed planning is being done. So you have to understand what's the current state of organization and where you need to go. Your strategy must be answering that question. So what you are today, how you are performing, how you are working today, and where you need to go. What's your end state? You want to become a lean startup. You want to become organization with regular delivery, right? In small batches, different delivery. So how do you reach from A point to B point? Your strategy should be in a position to answer those. So I'm going to share now this a wonderful model. This is from Leading Agile. Mike Kotmer is the founder of it. A lot of wonderful videos and other literature you'll find in the website. Also on YouTube, there are a lot of videos available. There's plenty of information. But I really like the simplicity of this model, run across 2 axes and 4 quadrants. So let us first look at the x-axis. The left-hand side of the x-axis you have predictability. Then right-hand side you have that. That's the axis. On the y-axis on the top you have emergence. It's kind of you're in an emergence ecosystem. This is on the bottom you have convergent. So the x-axis primarily for the organization. In terms of planning perspective, what do the organizations value most? They value like planning with predictability in mind. Predictable planning means okay, we have this long-term plan and like from here to there, right? This is what we want to achieve next 1 year, next 12 months, and your focus is on predictability. So let's say to the 90% of level of confidence, we should be able to achieve this outcome. So this could be one thing. At the other extreme is adaptability. So you're designed for change. So say since we are in a VUCA world, whatever that is there today, therefore going to change tomorrow and it keep changing. There will be a lot of market forces, a lot of other external factors and forces force us to be highly adaptable. So that should be our nature. So we don't do any long-term planning because by the time we have done long-term planning, things have changed rapidly, and then this whole planning. So these are the 2 extremes on the planning horizon. And on the y-axis is your emergence versus convergence. So emergence is something like we build a product. We build a subset, small set called MVP. We try it out, give it to the customers, take the feedback, get the market response, and then adapt. Then adapt the next phase of the development. What changes we want to do? Does it really sell well in the market? Our customers wanting more of this kind of versus some of the other. So this could be something like building a new product or enhancing a product. Convergence is something.
Kiran, in the diagram, what is B1, B2, B3, B4, B5 means?
I'll talk about that. Hold on to
Okay,
that.
thank.
There are these are static image, but these are actually has to be seen in dynamic. I will talk about the other transformation stages, and I'd also like to tell you that what this is about. Why I put a cross. I'll talk about that. So most of the organizations, find them in this zone, this quadrant, which is called PE, predictable emergence. So you have, you've got PMOs, you've got plans in place, you have identified what are the so you are trying to be predictable, right? And then you're still like have some kind of a change oriented. But then what happens that because of lack of knowledge from real requirement, what customer really wants, because what customer really wants can be known only when this thing goes into the hands of customer. Say no, this is not what the teams rush to building the new set of. So they think that okay, they can straight away jump from kindergarten to standard 10. How to go that. So you have to build your capability in terms of becoming better predictable, adoption of lean and agile techniques, and then you slowly motion go into fully in a lean startup where you've got patches to focus on outcomes, have that fully decoupled. When again I'm doing this one because this is the jargon, the language that I talk about self-confident. So these are the set of tools, which are highly evolved very mature in terms of their method. Right? So this journey, again, like Shuhari, we don't simply jump from a base camp to the summit directly. So to go to some of these. So just suffice to say that how much do you value predictable versus adaptation change? That is on the x-axis. So more you design a system for predictability, harder it is to change. Let's say you've got a rock solid plan, right? Something like working a waterfall. Now you think that if you're hit by any change, it's harder to adapt it. And suppose the more you design for adaptive, they are very adaptable. So less predictable. Never you are in a narrow, wider zone of the core of uncertainty where you will not be able to predict because you are so dynamic, you are highly adaptive. So you have to balance this. It's not that one approach is better over the other. That's not the point. Point is, you have to have a very balanced. It's not even necessary that the organization have to be predictable or they have to be adaptable. They can have a nice fixed blend of both their strategy. And on emergence and convergence, it is basically about, like, say, for example, you are in a highly regulated environment, right? So there are certain compliance, certain aspects of the product need to be there, better what is standard. So you are highly, working highly converged. Let's say you are in regulated environment. You are working a taxation software. So things are very clear, and you have to comply. Your system has to comply with this new taxation. Or let's say you're in a healthcare to regulate. So you still need to have a balance of predictability and adaptability yet compared to this convergence. So every organization has to really find out a way how to balance four quadrants. And let me also tell you, it is not even necessary that teams have to go through this path and think. That's not like reaching a nirvana and then say the desired end state where everyone has to respect it. You can happily stay here, you can happily stay and be very successful. But then this compass with leading agile team calls it like leading agile compass. This compass will tell you that where you are and from where you are, where you want to go, what are some of the ways and methods you will have to adopt to navigate from where you are to where you are. Yeah, you have any questions, Vijay? Does that clarify, give you that description of this compass model, 2x2 quadrant? Hi, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, you're audible to us.
Okay, all right, thank you. So coming to that question of B1, B2, B3, B4, what is that? So what teams have, what teams do typically is first try to navigate in this direction as they try to become predictable. So here the process centers around forming teams, defining agile governance model, from some kind of a governance model, lightweight model, and identifying some of the baseline metrics. Right? So at your throughput or velocity or some of these baseline metrics, which will help you measure. And then through continuous improvement cycle, you would like to improve upon the outcomes that you're looking. So you're using techniques, but you aren't agile yet. But you started, some of the ceremonies, some of the estimation, you're trying to improve, get better at, story point estimation techniques, some of these techniques you're trying to do. And you started using metrics for contingent. So you're having some measures in place, you'll apply some of the benchmarks and you try to improve. But you are not losing your focus on the long-term plan. You still have that because you're still in the predictability zone. So you still have your ISS on the long-term plan. And you also found out ways to do dependency management, how you will resolve dependency, orchestrated product development. And some of the technical practices like unit testing, automation, DevOps, yes. In this zone, you're trying to establish some of these foundation processes and techniques, and you're training your teams, you're preparing your organization for the next stage, where you are going sure, where you try to look at, how we can reduce that size, we can come in smaller, shorter release cycles. So you're on your way to agility, but you're not fully arrived there. So you have to first transition navigate to this, again, kind of becoming like moving from shoe to half in your process of becoming more mature in terms of processes, competency. So this will be like kind of, preparing and learning the lessons, applying some of these basic foundation level principles, methods, and techniques. And then you shift to the adaptable convergence called AC. So you move from PE to PC. predictive convergence zone, and then from predictive convergence zone, you are moving to adaptable. So this is where you try to shift your focus from being predictable to being more adaptable or change oriented. So here, as you see, the teams have matured on this in terms of time scale. It could be several weeks, it could be several months. You have to stick to this practices, and only once you're matured, then you shift your focus to a higher level of practices. So you are trying to mature in your delivery, you are becoming more successful. And now through estimation, and since you have also done some breakdown in terms of technological landscape in your product, so you are now in a position to come with a smaller batch size. So you have started to build agility. You have started to measures measurement. You see that you are actually improving your throughput, and you are seeing some positive results. And some of the subsystems, and since you are also doing this kind of dismantling and factoring, that organization also doing your technological evaluation. So you will see that you are having this degree of autonomy and increasing gradually over time. The teams are becoming more autonomous, say self-organized, right? And I have seen that some of the transformation teams indeed reach this stage, and some of these teams are actually early to reach this stage. So what they do, they typically look at the backlog, they look at their technology stack, and then they find out a way, to refactoring how they can start planning in small batch. So they come up with a set of features. This can be delivered in across 2 to 3 sprints. And a set of features which provide a kind of a full-fledged capability in the product or in the application can be delivered in a shorter release cycle. So if you remember in my previous presentation, I had shown how to careful adopt of Kanban use batch sizes, able to reduce our cycle to like 6 months to 1 year. We are able to make release quarter again, half year. In fact, we have shortened the release cycles even further. We have been able to release that every month. To make a short release. So this is in this zone called adaptive convergence zone, and finally, this is where you see a real organism which are like really showing hallmark or character of the agile. So they are like kind of decouple fully means again they become autonomous, completely self-managed on their own, and the organization focus is also changed to more outcome driven over outputs or like requirements. So they are looking at outcomes in terms of adoption of adoption of the product in the market, customer adoption, net increase in customer size, or have we penetrated other segments across different product categories and so on and so forth. So they are kind of driven by more outcomes and fully harnessing the agile practices to reliably and predictably deliver working products. So they have become so consistent. They become very consistent, no matter size and complexity of what they are building or what is their product or solution. They're able to harness very effectively agile practices to and consistently, reliably deliver working product as like a very efficient machine. And by the time you're here, this could take several months, it could take several years to completely navigate this journey, provided you are sustaining yourself and sticking to the overall roadmap and plan. Once you arrive here, you see that you are a butterfly. So you completely transform yourself from what you started like a larvae or a caterpillar, and now you're a completely different organization. So the organization is completely transformed in many ways, in terms of the way they are working, health system, processes, everything, both materially as well as non-material in terms of the culture, so significantly transformed. So this is how now when what Mike Mayer says, the leading agent, it's a very long video there. He says that it's not necessary that every team has to navigate through all the stages here. That's not the desired goal for every organization. You may be happy, settled down here. Any questions or any observation? I think I'm going too fast because this is slightly more on this complex topic. Anything from your experience? Any success, any failure, challenge that you saw? Like Shri was saying, that it's a big thing changing mindset of people is the biggest challenge. Taking everybody along through this transformation is indeed a big challenge. Like to share any experience from your stories?
Yes, so Hiren, we had this company where they were kept announcing, oh, we are going agile, we go agile. They even had a agile coach and agile team, and but they failed in so many ways. They didn't have prima facie training to everybody. So some of them knew, some of them didn't know. Like the BAs would come and say, "Oh, why we even need requirements? It's agile."
Yeah,
And the business had no clue.
absolutely.
Like, they don't
No,
understand at all. So people
this
think that if you come agile, you don't need requirements, you don't need charter, you don't need design, you don't need build, you don't need test.
you
So
see that
man, you need everything.
soft resistance gradually converting into a hard stiff resistance, right? And
No, no, you
that's the
need
story of it.
everything. Like everything is there. Only thing is that it's not like a 3 months of requirement gathering, 3 months of design. It's all there. You need you need to put sanity into what you're doing. So everything is there. Only thing is that you take chunks of work and you deliver it. And if you're working for big organization, they don't even put it in production. It's there in their repository. So when they have the big release, they will
Yeah.
release it into production as like a big bang, but it's being built internally. So with the result, and then it was really nonsense. So that's
And one very, very interesting, this is where that statistics come from, right? 47 from. And then large number of organizations looking for to transforming or transitioning to agile. This may not be really
and
well.
they'll come for stand-ups and everybody's on their phone. So they don't get the point. Like,
But
why
people lose
here?
motivation. People lose that kind of energy, that spark that was there earlier in the.
Yeah, and
So why
yeah.
this happens? Because either you do not have there's no one single factor. There's a set of factors, and that's what I put in the earlier slide. That leadership has stopped coming to these. They care less about how this, and teams also have lost motivation, and they have fallen back to the old ways of work. I've seen in my experience. Then we have to question them. Why this is happening? Why you stop these practice? So this is where I think has to be sustained. It's very easy to direct something, but then if you do not really sustain it, it will fall apart. You have to have some kind of a sustenance. Build the system. Sometimes it has to be self-sustaining. It needs sustenance in form of support or
Yeah.
leadership support, and all those things are required to make this thing thick and stick.
Yeah.
Kiran, that's why we do every quarterly assessment, correct? What is the agile maturity?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where
That's
are we? And yeah, in that way, at least we find out what is the gap and we correct it. So the ultimate aim is to, like, for example, 1 to 5, correct? So if the team is in 2, then next the target will be moved to 3 on the next quarter. So there also we go to all the checklists, whatever prepared, and the same checklist will be used for all the teams and all the business. So that is the way we track how we are in and agile coaches are also there, and randomly they will also connect to the events, and they will also provide their feedback. Like they will sometimes join, because they will be working in multiple teams, correct? So they will suddenly join in one daily scrum. So that's a sample or their retrospective, and then they will observe everything. Later in the end, they will give their feedback, or they will arrange a different session and say, okay, I participated in this, your team is going the right direction, or these are the correction points you need to do.
Wonderful, Vijay. Really appreciate that. So these are some of the aspects. So you talk about some of the like the roadmap, 30-day check-in or every quarterly review. You need to have a checklist. But what it tells, that you are having absolute transparency, right? And you are having that empiricism, the 3 pillars of our inspection, adaptation, and transparency. Right? You need to have that. Right? Without this truth coming out, people will not be really having an idea of what's the real progress we are doing, what are our challenges, what are the headwinds. And you need to have this systems thinking approach, right? You need to have a roadmap. Now, roadmap should not be on the paper. Roadmap should be in form of execution. That okay, this was what was stage 1, this is what was stage 2, and this is what was stage 3. Have we successfully completed stage 1 where we are? what tells us that we have successfully completed stage one, and what are some of the things required essentially to enter into stage? What actions need to be taken to successfully execute stage two, and so on and so forth, right? Now, this requires some kind of a leadership. This requires some kind of a commitment, communication, open and transparent communication, and taking feedback from everyone. Working on that feedback and doing course correction based on the feedback received, and doing a status check. So this is very important. So where this is breakdown and fall apart is when these things kind of sputter down, like the engine losing its steam or fuel, and then finally it will crash land. So before it happens, before it, need to have the kind of a governance. So governance is very important. Right? Without governance, this whole engine will not work. This is not kind of an automated engine that it will work on. It will work, provided we need to make it enable to reach that stage of where it can work fully automated. Wonderful point, Vijay. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Kiran.
So, in my experience of what I did here, like the 12 agile principles, I not necessarily like a 12 agile, but 12 gems for transformation, which I found common in every transformation that was part of, from small scale to large scale, from a very product oriented, process oriented transformation, a very product oriented, very adaptive. We are building a new product and we are not sure ourselves that whether this product will sell. Across these different scales in terms of complexity and size, from small team to large enterprise, I put together this 12. What I call a key cornerstone, which has to be there in every transformation story. So you need to have a very well-defined iterative increment development model. You can have anything. You can have any agile model, DAD or DES, Scrum, Kanban. Have an iterative increment development where you have the capability to decide whether you want to release every sprint. So you need to come to a state where you can create a potentially suitable increment every almost. This initially may be very difficult, but if you're harnessing your knowledge, experience, learning to continue improvement, you will eventually arrive at. This foundation level of in form of a model is required. Without that, I think no matter what other things you have in place, you're not able to deliver and continuous improvement. And you need to have a culture of continuous improvement. Like retrospective is a tool which provides you ample opportunity to evaluate, introspect yourself, and find out where you are. What are the things that are still blocking your success, and what you need to change in order to be more successful. So this culture is required. Then, if you're really doing, even if you're adaptable or in a convergent or convergent ecosystem, what you need to identify is every product solution that you are creating, enhancing, developing, delivering has to have a feature oriented. Because what ultimately customer values is ability to make a payment, ability to pick up any kind of a payment model, ability to successfully acknowledge the payment is successful or not. With all these features, that's what the value, that's a benefit for the customer. I'm just giving some examples. Several. So you need to have a end-to-end feature orientation, and if you deliver this feature, the features as a cadence, then I think you are real to your customer. So that's what customer really wants. Working in terms of a feature keeping my feature end to end. If I want to book a flight ticket, my entire feature end to end is including payment, including availability of flight, availability of routes, all other criteria put together. The entire feature works rock solid. That's what customer wants. And product ownership is one big area. So prioritize product backlog, and related point is the single, fully responsible and accountable leader. This can become a lacuna from a point of failure. Any transformation story. Do not have effective PO. Do not have this product backlog. I don't think you're close to what we are. So continuous to deliver value. These all like related. Start with small hypothesis MVP and then build upon it. Convert it MMP or MRP. Empowered cross-functional teams. I use other tools like Lucifer, but there are cross-functional self-managed powered. They are empowered. They are autonomous. They have the capability significant decisions, and incorporate voice of customer through regular check-ins with the customer, involving them, inviting, show demo, and beta programs, voice of levels. Some of strengthen some of the practices, clear definition of that. I've seen that these looks good on paper, but then they are very what I say, loose in adherence and compliance. And without actually checking whether they qualify the criteria, they push the features and done. Then they start seeing defects coming from the customer. This is kind of a loose implementation. You need to have a very strong adherence and compliance in terms of this. And yeah, through reporting, value-based reporting in terms of what are the outcomes, how the teams are progressing, how the product delivery is progressing, feature burn rate, all it has to be very transparent, from top to bottom, left to right. Everyone can see it, what's the actual status. Sometimes in a whole this picture, I've seen that we miss out our technical aspects. So we need to have engaged architects when we're doing technological. When you're doing a product roadmap or a product backlog, you also need to have a technological roadmap as you're evolving. Let's say you are moving from on-prem to cloud. Now this is easier said than done. You need to have engaged architects who will provide you roadmap for technological evolution. You not simply take customers from on-prem solution overnight to a cloud-based subscription-based solution. Have engaged architects involved, and again, self. These are kind of 12 agile principles or 12 gems for part of any story. Anything you like to add here, or anything you see is redundant? To hear your comments.
The mindset is not listed here. Maybe.
Wow, wonderful point. Yes, it's about cultural and the mindset change. Yeah, wonderful point. Good point. Yes, has to be included here. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
growth mindset. So you're not just doing agile, you're being agile.
Being agile. Yeah.
And
wonderful
the other
point.
thing, yeah, the other thing would be this cross-functional self-organizing team. I don't know. That's actually quite a myth.
Wonderful point. Yeah.
Worked in so many organizations.
Why do you think it's a myth, Margaret? Let me hear you on that.
Because Hiren, think about it. If I'm a BA, you want me to be a tester, and you also want me to be what is that, Scrum Master? Like, what am I going to do? Like, it's very stressful. You can't keep on and on. Like, definitely if there are, and then you're so thinly spread all over.
Wonderful point. I know this. I empathize with it. So
I've worked in big organizations. My last one, they actually did. It was really very beautiful transformation from this our mainframe to Salesforce. They actually did that transformation.
Wonderful.
For a city and county. They did that, and you know what? That was the thing. Even and they were 120% or 200% agile, but still the developers were developers. The requirement
again, this is again about like a true understanding of what essentially is a cross function. So 8 out of 10, if I ask people, their understanding about cross functional things, okay, fine. I am supposed to be a developer. If the situation arises, if I'm asked, I need to do testing, and that's not what the concept of cross function. Cross functionality, simple definition is that the team has all the required skills to convert a requirement to something working.
Yeah, you are correct, Hiran. Previously, like development team is separate, testing team is separate, DBA team is separate. So that was the traditional way of organizing the teams. Now, cross-functional team means for developing that particular feature, you have everybody in the team. It can be UI, it's related to UI development, database development, testing, unit testing, SIT. So the team is able to do the end-to-end delivery. Related to that function.
It's not saying we need everyone.
We get the definition part. I'm not saying we know the ideal. We go practical. It doesn't happen that way. If I'm a UI developer, I'm not going to go and develop and then do the testing and also maybe write requirements. That's what they say. Like, you should have all those skills.
No, that
It's
is
just
that's a challenge, Margaret, and that's a challenge, and
and
that's
it's
where
very
we have
stressful.
to.
You will be burnt out if you're trying to do everything. So you have to
But
be
isn't
I
it the mindset? Isn't it the
agile.
mindset?
No, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing.
That's. I just want to add one
It's the
more point,
mindset where
Hiran
the
and Margaret.
organization
So
it's very people burn out. They say, man, that's it.
I think we can have one complete session like this on
no,
this
no,
topic
no.
only, because
I just want to
this
add
is
one point. In year 2000, correct? If somebody working on C development, if they ask them to work in COBOL,
yeah,
he will say, "No, I'm a C developer. I
I'm
can't work
assuming
in
that.
COBOL." That was 2000, correct? Now we are in 2022. Now we are talking about T-shaped skills. So
Yes,
now even testing, correct? Previously they do manual testing. Now automation testing. So they need to do programming. So in that case, the development team needs to help them to understand the scripting language to some extent. So that's what it's called T-shaped skills. It is not about like
broad T or a deep T,
yeah,
whatever.
BA is doing development. A development guy is going to do a functional work. No, it is about enhancing little more. And I also in the previous organization, correct? They will say multi hat. So you can't wear only one hat. Always I say I'm a developer, I'm a QA, I'm a BA like that.
Vijay, that's
So
the
we need
reason
to.
why. That is the reason why full stack jobs are so demand now. Oh, I'm a
Yeah.
full stack
Yes.
developer.
Yeah.
I can do everything. Anyway, point taken. But the reality is that what Margaret is saying, this can still become a challenge.
You have worked
And
in this
See,
organization.
on top of this, you have like attrition going on. So someone person don't have any kind of a backup, or you may have elaborate plans of having backup. But this is something that change that has to. So keeping what is most important here is that how to have that focus other than my. This is something that will build it as part of the culture of the mind.
Kiran, in this, you asked us, correct? Actually, the empowering cross-functional team and co-located loosely coupled team, both are like duplicate, in my opinion. Maybe we can
related.
related, yeah.
Wonderful discussion. I think this is really observations and sharing. Right? I really appreciate for chiming in. For these are indeed, as I said, each of these are very trivial, but they are not. If you open up those sides, that's how challenge.
Kiran, any specific reason this image was selected? I think there's something coming in the bottom. There's a line.
So I was looking for a cornerstone, and then I found this wonderful picture of what cornerstone is about. So when you construct a building,
Okay.
when you're constructing a building, there is always going to be a brick or a stone which is called as a cornerstone or foundation. It's an 80, 90 for the corner. By term for
Okay.
So in every our agile transformation story or strategy, you need to have certain kind of cornerstone. This kind of have to be there in every aspect. Kind of what is. Some of the things have to be there essential. The kind of. Now this is not something like cast in stone. So don't get me wrong. These 12 are there, so they cannot be 30, they cannot be 10 or 11. So you can have your own 12, you can have your own 10 or 11. But these are some of the things which are common across, no matter what kind of organization that's part of. So, and I saw these common every story. No matter whether you are even doing transformation or even you're just trying to get more agile with the way of agility, trying to build more agility. Every aspect. These things a whole. All right, so keeping it simple, just sum it up. This is very elaborate, very detailed. So can be this can be blow it up further and you elaborate it can become a very detailed plan in terms of roadmap, in terms of strategy, governance methodology. What will be stage 1, stage 2? What teams we change pilot 1? What teams we take on pilot 2? It has to be very, very carefully orchestrated, planned. But then the good thing is that it can be managed and it could be measured. So you need a foundation, a bedrock of governance support and some kind of measurements to really quantify and assess and see how we are progressing. And you can have multiple stages. It's not like they can do pieces, but I'm at a very high level, at like a 15,000 feet. First stage is when you get started. So it means that you have done some kind of a planning, some kind of a homework, you've got to at least create a roadmap to identify key stakeholders. You may have created your transition backlog also. the agile fashion. This is our transition backlog. These are all items, priority one. We hit these items on priority one. Then we go to the next set of items and define the end state. Never start with the why. Start with the end in the mind, right? Stephen Covey's 7 habits. Always have the end in mind. What is the end state you're trying to go? Start with that definition. What's the end state? What's the vision? Then start your transformation journey. Then, as you're in an execution phase, you do pilot and rollout. So don't do blind or blanket rollout. You do a pilot, evaluate the pilot, and see what are some of the common characteristics. What are some of the specific characteristics which are not common? So what you need to adapt when you go to the next pilot, and the scale to see how you scale it out, scale it up. So, and sustaining. The most important thing is when you create something, you have to figure out how you're going to sustain. You want to make this in form of system. Some of the things could be self-sustaining in terms of automation. Some of the things could be, still requiring interventions or leadership, governance, and management oversight. Yes, we think of it that. So once you have all these aspects of transformation covered, I think you've got a wonderful strategy in place in terms of phase gate approach or a stage gate approach where you take your organization. As I think Vijay or someone else was saying, you check-ins at every regular interval, 30-day check-ins or quarterly check-ins. You evaluate your progress in terms of measures, seek the feedback, identify what are the areas which are not successful, which have not really worked out, whether it's a training, whether it's a forming appropriate teams, we're still struggling with the requirements and all that stuff. So once you evaluate, take the feedback, and then you chart out the next course of the transformation. So some useful tips, this I got from Constructs. They also great consultants. They're out of Seattle, Washington area. And Steve McConnell, who wrote the wonderful software development founder of Constructs.com. So I got these wonderful tips. I don't want to read each and every tip, but understand they are again very basic in nature. Some of the things that you need to really be aware of whenever you embark on any kind of a transformation. So, like as part of communication, like let's talk about this tip. Make sure people know how the transformation will affect them specifically. Sometimes when we take the organization along, we miss out on telling employees, telling people that how their individual role, even their presence in the team will be impacted, how their future also is going to be impacted, right? They have been working certain way, like as you said, I was a DB developer. So I was working as part of the database team. Now there's no database team. Now part of a product team or a feature team. So there's going to be an impact upon me, right? So I need to be communicated to or told how this transfer is going to affect me or impact me specifically. What I need to do now, what versus what I was doing up to now. Those kind of things also need to be spelled out with. Any questions on this? Any observations on these tips? I think these are very self-explanatory. Did you read through this slide? Okay, if there are no questions, then I'll come to the last slides of this session. So some, again, misconceptions I still see floating around, some of the anti-patterns that people have been bringing. Still, they have not gotten over some of the bad habits. So one I've already talked about, if initial pilot is successful, the rest of the organization can easily transfer. That's absolutely false. Initial trainings are sufficient. So what I see that when the transformation or this kind of a activity begins, there are a lot of trainings being given initially. Oh, let's train all the teams, and then after that they forget to retrain. Sometimes a refresher trainings are also required to bring back people to they might have forgotten some of the things, or they might have fallen back to the old ways of working, old habits. So you need to do some refresher trainings. And management and leadership, you need to be present in every orientation, so that their presence brings about that level of commitment, sense of commitment, the rest of the organization. So don't do blind replication. That what has worked at a team level. Let's say, for example, this team really brought out some fantastic results, and you believe that if this can be applied, replicated at enterprise level, need to have a different approach. And don't put the blame on external coach or facilitator if you cannot. He or she is not individually, singly responsible for the success. It is going to be collective effort from everyone involved. Success.
So he's just a catalyst. Am I correct to say?
Yes, a role as a catalyst, as a change agent. Yeah.
Yeah, change.
But what happens that if the things don't work out, they put all the blame on Mr. Coach or Mrs. Coach. Yeah. You didn't do. You didn't give us the right training or facilitation or consultation. So don't blame the Ronachari if you can't fire the arrow properly. Yeah, a lot of benefits we all know. Once an organization is transforming and see better ROI, happy customers, happy employees, reduced costs, improved outcomes in terms of quality, results, and time to market also getting reduced by the proper delivery execution by the teams. So these are some of the, I know there are many more other benefits as well, but then if you getting it right, then I will see most of these benefits coming our way. So let's conclude, this is not difficult, not impossible. Yes, there's a way to do it, provided you get your act together, get everybody together in this whole transformation game. Don't leave anyone out. Try to keep everyone engaged, and you will be highly successful. So you should be open to change. You should learn from whatever that is not gone well, mistakes. To have this mindset, then I think you're very successful. So as you know, the old adage, that the only thing that constant world is change. So, and this change is going to be continuous. So as people change, as they change over a period of time, organization cultures also must change for the better, change for the better. So with this, I would like to conclude here with this final thought, and here are some of the references that I picked up while doing my research for preparing this topic. I hope you have enjoyed today's session. So it's time for tea now. Vijay, anyone else like to end?
Hi, Eren. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful topic, especially that framework for agile transformation that you gave
The four
from
quadrant.
predictability, a 4-quadrant from predictability to adaptability. That was really, really amazing. However, this is a little bit of, you can see it from different perspective, like predictability. So we will not say that agile teams are not predictable. Predictability in terms of the scope, you will say that, or in terms of the change that happens in the
wonderful point. That's a fantastic point. I really appreciate it, because that's the keynote that Mike Cortner also makes in his paper. He says that it doesn't matter to us that how predictable you are, or what matters is how predictable you're trying to.
Yeah.
What extent you're trying to. So it doesn't mean that when you're adaptable you do not be predictable.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So guys, thank you so much for holding that long. It's 8:51 already, but thank you so much. It was really good interest, and definitely you have a lot of questions. So yes, any of your friends, if you have missed, please see these recordings on our YouTube channel. And see you next Saturday, same time, same location.
Let me thank you, Vijay and Agile Models, once again for providing this wonderful platform for collaboration and information exchange. Thank you, and thanks everyone. Sincere